You sure you want to sit up front? David Benson's voice drips with smug confidence as he pushes open the mahogany courtroom doors. The chatter fades to a hush. His mistress, a woman half his age, struts in beside him, red dress too bold for a courthouse, heels clicking like gunfire on tile. Every eye turns. Every whisper slows. The air in courtroom 4B smells like old paper and quiet judgment. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, turning every smirk and wrinkle harsh. Reporters lean forward from the gallery. They've been waiting all morning for this. The divorce of one of the city's wealthiest real estate developers. The man who thinks charm is currency. You can feel the tension tighten as David slides into his seat. His lawyer, slick, suited, silver-tongued, sets down a briefcase with a metallic click. The mistress crosses her legs, her perfume too sweet, too loud. Mariah Benson, his wife of 14 years, sits across the aisle in quiet composure. Not designer calm, earned calm. The kind that hides cracks. David leans over to his mistress and mutters, "Relax, babe. You're part of history today." He chuckles. The bailiff calls out, "All rise." Everyone stands. Then she walks in, Judge Eleanor Warren. Early 40s, regal posture, expression unreadable. Her black robe moves like shadow, her gavel like punctuation. David doesn't even glance up at first. But his mistress does, and the color drains from her face. Her smile falters. Her breath catches. It's small, but you see it. The way her eyes widen, the slight tremor in her manicured hand clutching her purse. The judge pauses mid-step, almost imperceptibly before taking her seat. David leans closer, whispering, "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she lies, forcing a smile. But she's already staring at the bench as if she's seen a ghost. Judge Warren clears her throat. "Case number 230915, Benson vs. Benson. Both parties present?" "Plaintiff represented by Thomas Avery," Mariah's lawyer answers. "Defendant represented by Gregory Lane," David's attorney adds smoothly. The judge nods. But her gaze flickers again. To the young woman in the red dress, who shifts uncomfortably. "Please proceed," the judge says. Her tone is even, but a faint tremor lingers in the pause between words, like she's swallowing recognition. You can feel the tension ripple through the room, something invisible but alive. The mistress avoids the judge's eyes now. Her glossy confidence has curdled into quiet panic. David mistakes it for nerves. He leans back, smiling to himself. "Don't worry," he murmurs. "She's just another woman I'll win over." Mariah sits still, her wedding ring placed deliberately on the table beside her notepad. She doesn't look at David, not once, only at the judge, and for a flicker, the judge looks back. Two women, strangers on paper, but in that silence, something passes. A recognition. The lawyers begin their opening statements. Words like assets, betrayal, infidelity hang in the air. David smirks when the term marital misconduct comes up, whispering loud enough for the front row to hear. "You can't put a price on happiness." The gallery titters nervously. The judge doesn't react. But when David's mistress shifts again, clutching her purse tighter, Judge Warren's eyes linger. One heartbeat longer than protocol allows. What's inside that purse? A phone? A secret? A past mistake? You don't know yet. But the judge does. You can see it in the tightening of her jaw. For a moment, the courtroom becomes utterly still. Even the reporters stop typing. The silence stretches, brittle and sharp, until the judge's gavel cracks it clean in half. "Mr. Benson," she says, voice cool, "you will refrain from commentary during counsel's statement." David grins. "Of course, Your Honor." That smirk, the kind that's gotten him out of a dozen parking tickets, 100 negotiations. And now, he hopes, a marriage, stays plastered on his face. But his mistress's fingers tremble against the table. She's watching the judge like someone who's remembering a crime scene. "Proceed," the judge says again. As testimony begins, Mariah sits back, hands folded. She glances once at her husband, then at the mistress, then at the judge. Something about their exchange, a flicker, a stare too long, catches her intuition. You can see her mind turning behind those calm eyes. Something's off. The camera, if this were film, would hold on the mistress's purse, then tilt up to the judge's expression, the faintest shadow of recognition crossing her face again. You don't know what it means yet, but the judge does, and so does the mistress. She swallows hard, stealing one last look at the bench, as if silently begging, "Please don't remember." Judge Warren's gavel lowers once more. This court will recess in 10 minutes, but when her gaze meets the mistress's one final time, her expression shifts, just slightly, into something colder. Not judgment, memory. Outside, thunder rumbles. The courthouse lights flicker. Somewhere between the sound of rain and the echo of heels, one truth becomes certain. This divorce hearing won't just expose a marriage. It's about to unearth something buried much deeper. The judge looks down at her docket, her voice soft but steady. "Mr. Benson, Mrs. Benson, this court is here to uncover truth, nothing more." But under the table, the mistress's hand trembles, and you realize the truth she's hiding isn't about David at all, it's about the woman with the gavel. When court resumes after the short recess, the rain outside has turned the courthouse windows into ghostly mirrors. You can't tell if the gray light makes the room colder, or if it's just the tension tightening everyone's shoulders. Mariah Benson sits perfectly still. Her pearl earrings catch faint flashes from the reporter's cameras, little sparks of composure. Her lawyer, Thomas Avery, leans close. "We start with assets," he murmurs. "You'll be fine." She nods, but her eyes are elsewhere. Not on David, not even on the mistress, on the judge. That woman's calmness is too measured, her gaze too steady for someone untouched by this circus. Mariah's mother always said, "Still water runs deep, and sometimes it hides snakes." Across the aisle, David scrolls through his phone, bored. He checks the trending tab on social media. His name is already there. He smirks. Fame is fame, even in disgrace. His mistress, meanwhile, looks pale under the courthouse lights. She keeps adjusting her blouse, crossing and uncrossing her legs. Her confidence is melting by the minute. She hasn't looked at the judge since the recess began. "Stop fidgeting," David whispers. "You're making people think you're guilty of something." Her lips part, a soft whisper. "Maybe I am." He laughs it off. "Please, honey. I'm the one on trial here." The bailiff's call cuts through. Court in session. Judge Warren enters again. The sound of her heels echoes, precise, deliberate. You notice something different. She's wearing reading glasses now. But the way she adjusts them feels rehearsed, like she's buying herself a few extra seconds to breathe. "Counsel for the plaintiff, proceed," she says. Avery rises, buttoning his jacket. "Your Honor, we present evidence of financial concealment by Mr. Benson, offshore accounts under shell corporations, unreported dividends, and asset transfers made within 30 days of the filing." The gallery stirs. David's lawyer stands instantly. "Objection. The accounts in question are verified by subpoena," Avery cuts in, sliding a folder forward. "Filed 2 days ago." David's smirk fades. He leans toward his attorney. "You said they wouldn't find those?" "I said if they did, we'd deny intent," Lane mutters. The judge glances at the documents, her pen tapping lightly against her notes. Then, just as she's about to speak, her eyes flick, involuntarily, toward the mistress. It's fast. Barely a second, but enough. The mistress shifts uncomfortably. David notices. "What's with you two?" He whispers, irritation creeping in. Judge Warren finally speaks. Objection overruled. The records will be entered. A ripple of whispers sweeps through the spectators. Mariah remains quiet, composed. But something inside her stirs. This judge isn't impartial, she thinks. She's... Personal Avery continues, voice steady. "Additionally, we'll be introducing communication records, texts and emails between Mr. Benson and Ms. Klein." He gestures toward the mistress, indicating the use of marital assets to fund gifts, travel, and certain legal services. David's face darkens. "That's not Mr. Benson," the judge warns sharply. "You'll remain silent unless addressed." Her tone has changed, sharper. You can hear the echo of something deeper than professionalism. Mariah watches the mistress closely now. "Legal services," Avery said. "What kind of services?" The mistress bites her lip, eyes flickering again to the bench. Judge Warren turns a page, her hand trembling slightly. Then she pauses, almost imperceptibly. She's staring at a name in the document. A flicker. Recognition. It's gone as quickly as it appeared, but the damage is done. David doesn't notice. He's too busy glaring at Mariah, whispering under his breath, "This is revenge. That's all this is." Mariah doesn't respond, but her silence is heavy, the kind that makes a guilty man talk more. The judge sets the paper down. "Proceed with the next exhibit," Avery nods. "Your Honor, this next piece was recovered from a closed property file. 1. Connected to a past foreclosure case overseen by your predecessor, the word property freezes the room for a second. The mistress's fingers tighten around her. Chair. David's lawyer straightens, sensing something he can't yet name. Mariah's eyes narrow, scanning the judge's expression. She catches it again. That shadow, that trace of unease. "You may approach," the judge says quietly. Avery walks forward, handing over a sealed brown envelope. The judge opens it with slow precision. Inside, in a single document, folded once, she unfolds it. Her breath hitches, just slightly. It's subtle, but the court reporter glances up, surprised at the sound. "Your Honor?" Avery asks. Judge Warren clears her throat. "Exhibit accepted." She glances at the document again before sliding it face down on the bench. David frowns. "What's in there?" "Sit down, Mr. Benson," she says. Her voice wavers just for a fraction of a second. You can feel the room shift. The storm outside hits harder, wind howling faintly against the tall windows. Mariah leans toward her lawyer. "That reaction? Did you see it?" He nods, whispering back, "She knows something." For the first time all day, David seems uncertain. "What's happening here?" he mutters to his attorney. The lawyer doesn't answer. At the bench, Judge Warren folds her hands, staring straight ahead, but her eyes aren't focused on the room. They're on memory. For a flicker, you see something behind them. Regret, calculation, fear. Then, in a calm, measured voice, she says, "Court will adjourn for today. Counsel, my chambers in 10 minutes. Gavel strikes. The crowd erupts in murmurs. David rises furiously. "What is this, some kind of setup?" Mariah says nothing, only watches the judge leave through the side door, her black robe sweeping behind her like a closing curtain. The mistress finally exhales, eyes wet, whispering under her breath, "She wasn't supposed to see that file again." A reporter overhears. "What file?" he asks, but she doesn't answer. She just stands there, trembling, as if the walls themselves remember something she's tried to forget. Outside, lightning flashes, illuminating her reflection in the glass. For a heartbeat, her face overlaps perfectly with the judge's retreating silhouette. 2 women, 1 secret, and somewhere in the courthouse. A sealed folder sits on the judge's desk, the same one she swore she'd destroyed years ago. The next morning, the courthouse feels different, quieter, watchful. Even the bailiff's shoes squeak less on the linoleum. The gossip in the hallways hums like static. The judge called both lawyers into chambers last night. Something's off about that mistress. She knew the judge, didn't she? Inside courtroom 4B, the fluorescent light flickers overhead as though even the building itself is nervous. You can smell coffee and rain-soaked wool coats, tension wrapped in routine. Mariah sits in her seat early, papers neatly aligned, posture straight as a ruler. But she's not reading them. She's watching. Watching David whisper to his mistress, watching Judge Warren's clerk shuffle files onto the bench. The judge hasn't entered yet. David leans toward his mistress. "Look," he whispers. "I don't know what's wrong with you, but you better pull yourself together. You looked like you'd seen a ghost yesterday." She flinches at the word. "Maybe I did," she mutters. He frowns. "You're not making sense." "I told you we shouldn't have come together," she says, voice barely audible. "Why not?" Her gaze drops. "Because she knows me, David. Not like that. Not socially. Legally." The words hang in the air. He stares at her, trying to process. Legally? Before she can answer, the bailiff's call cuts in. All rise! The doors swing open. Judge Warren enters, robe flowing, expression carved from calm stone. But you can tell, her stride is just a fraction slower than yesterday's. Please be seated, she says, her tone even. But when she looks up, her eyes land, unavoidably, on the mistress. And something flickers again. Not surprised this time. Confirmation. Mr. Avery, the judge begins. You may proceed. He stands. Yes, Your Honor. Before we continue with division of assets, we'd like to address the property in dispute, namely the estate on Ridgeview Drive. Registered under Benson Development, LLC. The name alone makes the mistress's knuckles whiten around her purse. Continue, the judge says quietly. Avery nods. We have reason to believe that property was purchased using marital funds, then transferred to a private trust under a false beneficiary name. David shifts uncomfortably. What false name? Avery opens a folder. Miss Carla Rivers. The mistress's face drains of color. David blinks. What? Who the hell is... He stops. Slowly turns toward her. Carla? Her lips part, but no words come out. Judge Warren's pen freezes above her notes. Is that true? David hisses. You used another name? The mistress stammers. It was years ago. Before you what? His voice rises, venom spilling into it. Before you met me? The judge's gavel slams. Mr. Benson, you will not address the witness directly, but it's too late. The gallery's already buzzing. Mariah watches silently, eyes narrowed. Her lawyer leans in, whispering, This Carla Rivers name, it's in that old foreclosure file from last night. I thought so, she murmurs. Judge Warren takes a breath. Counsel, approach. Both attorneys walk up. Voices lower, but you can still hear snippets. Sealed record, conflict of interest, recusal. The judge's voice breaks through, calm but cold. This court will not recuse. I can proceed impartially. Mariah's lawyer tilts his head. With respect, Your Honor, it appears you may have prior involvement with this property. The judge's jaw tightens. The involvement was administrative. Years ago, irrelevant to these proceedings. But her eyes betray her. A quick, darting glance toward the mistress. David seizes the silence. So you do know her, Mr. Benson? No, let's hear it. My mistress, my judge, my wife, everyone here seems to have history except me. The courtroom erupts in whispers. Judge Warren raises the gavel. Silence! But she doesn't deny it. You can see the tremor in her hand as she lowers the gavel again. The mistress stands abruptly. Stop it! Just stop! David glares at her. What are you hiding? Her voice cracks. I didn't know she'd be here. I swear. Know who? Her, she whispers. Judge Warren, the judge's face pales. Just slightly. Mariah's voice cuts through the silence. Calm but deadly. Maybe you should explain to the court how you two know each other. The mistress shakes her head. I can't. You will, David snaps. Or we're both going down. Judge Warren slams the gavel again. Order! Her voice cracks for the first time. We will recess, the bailiff calls out. All rise. But nobody moves right away. The judge stands, turns sharply, and walks through the side door, leaving her notes behind for the first time. The mistress sits, face buried in her hands. David leans toward her, voice a low growl. Who are you, really? She looks up, mascara smudged, eyes wet. Someone who made a deal I never should have made. Deal? But before she can answer, the bailiff steps forward. Sir, you'll have to step back. David slams his briefcase shut, fury flashing in his eyes. I'll find out. As he storms out, reporters swarm. Cameras flash. Mariah remains seated, watching quietly. Her lawyer whispers, Should we follow? She shakes her head. No, let them run. The truth always catches slower. Then she looks toward the bench, the empty chair where Judge Warren sat moments ago. For just a heartbeat, you can almost hear what the silence is saying. They've met before, and whatever it wasn't clean. In the corner of the room, the court clerk gathers the judge's notes and frowns at one line scribbled in the margin, Ridgeview, Revisit file 211. Missing affidavit. He doesn't understand it. But the camera would linger there, slow zoom, the handwriting trembling slightly across the page, because that missing affidavit, the one she wrote and buried years ago, is about to make this courtroom explode. The hallway outside courtroom 4B is chaos, reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing, the hum of scandal thick in the air. But inside the judge's chambers, the world has gone still. Judge Warren stands at the window, staring down at the rain-specked city below. Her reflection in the glass looks older, heavier. She presses her palm against the pane as if steadying herself. There's a knock at the door. "Come in," she says softly. The door opens. The mistress, Carla Rivers, steps in hesitantly. No guards, no lawyers. Just the two of them, and years of unfinished business hanging between them. Judge Warren turns, eyes calm but cold. "You shouldn't be here." "I didn't plan this," Carla says. "I didn't even know you were still on the bench." The judge's lips twitch bitterly. "You think a few dirty cases could stop me?" Carla lowers her gaze. "I wasn't dirty, Judge. I was desperate." "You lied on a sworn affidavit." Carla's voice trembles. "Because they made me." "Your clerk told me if I didn't sign, I'd lose custody of my daughter." The judge flinches. "Don't pretend you don't remember," Carla continues, stepping closer. "Ridgeview Development. You said that project was clean, that the Bensons were helping fund low-income housing. But it wasn't housing, was it? It was a tax shelter, and I was the face they used to make it look legitimate." Judge Warren's hand tightens around the arm of her chair. "That case was sealed." "Yeah," Carla says bitterly. "Sealed right after you got promoted." For a long moment, the judge says nothing. The clock ticks softly in the background. Then, almost whispering, she says, "You weren't supposed to get hurt." Carla laughs, a hollow sound. "I went to jail for perjury. My kid grew up without me." "You call that not getting hurt?" The judge looks down at her hands, voice barely audible. "They told me it was too late to pull back. The signatures were already filed. You could have told the truth. I tried." Her tone sharpens. "I filed an affidavit exposing the fraud, but it was removed from the record, replaced." The clerk vanished the next week. "You think I wasn't punished?" Carla steps forward, face pale. "Wait, you did write something?" The judge nods once. "File 211. Affidavit marked Ridgeview. It was the last thing I submitted before they buried the case. That's what I saw in my notes today." "The missing affidavit?" Carla exhales shakily. "Then that's the proof." "Proof of what?" Carla's voice lowers to a whisper. "That David's company has been laundering money for years, using my name, your signature, and Mariah's marriage." The judge's eyes widen. "You're saying yes," Carla interrupts. "Mariah wasn't just cheated on. She was used as legal cover. Her assets, her taxes, her marriage, all to keep David's company clean. Ridgeview was their first test run." Judge Warren moves to her desk, pulls open a drawer, and takes out a small brass key. She walks to the wall, presses the key into an old filing cabinet, and opens it with a creak. Inside, hundreds of sealed folders, yellowed with age. She flips through them rapidly until her hand stops. File 211. She opens it, empty. Her face falls. "It's gone!" Carla leans over. "No. Look. Tucked inside, barely visible, is a single torn corner of a document, and the faint impression of a notary stamp. The ink faded but readable. Filed by Warren J., 2014. Judge Warren exhales. It was here. Then she straightens, her expression turning to iron. "If that document still exists, it'll be in the courthouse archives, sub-basement, restricted access." Carla frowns. "You mean sealed evidence storage?" The judge nods. "Yes, and if we find it, this entire case changes. Not just your record, not just Mariah's divorce. David Benson could face federal charges." Carla hesitates. "Why are you helping me?" The judge's answer is simple. "Because I should have done it 10 years ago." Cut to interior, courthouse basement, night, a flickering light bulb, rows of locked cabinets and dust-choked shelves. The air hums faintly with the sound of old secrets. The judge walks in, trench coat over her robe. Carla follows, flashlight in hand. File 211, the judge whispers. They split up. The camera tracks them in parallel, the beam of Carla's flashlight cutting through the darkness. Finally, she stops. A file box labeled Ridgeview Holdings, sealed 2014. Judge, she calls softly. The judge turns, walks toward her. Opens the box. Inside, hundreds of pages, most stamped void, duplicate, or withdrawn. But beneath them, one thin folder marked Affidavit of Fraud, Confidential. The judge exhales. This is it. They open it slowly. The camera zooms in. The signature is hers. The name David Benson appears 5 times underlined. The affidavit details forged transfers, shell companies, and the use of Carla Rivers as a false beneficiary. Then, footsteps. Someone's here. The judge freezes. The flashlight flickers, then goes out. Carla, no answer. A shadow moves at the far end of the hall. Heavy footsteps. Echoing. The judge tucks the affidavit under her coat and whispers, "Run!" But it's too late. A hand grabs Carla from behind, pulling her backward into the darkness. She screams once, muffled. The judge turns. Heart pounding. The light sputters back to life. But the hallway is empty. Just one thing remains where Carla stood, her necklace. The same one she wore at the hearing. The judge kneels, trembling. Picks it up. Then she whispers the line that will carry this story into its next act. David Benson isn't trying to win his divorce. He's trying to erase his past. The next morning, courtroom 4B feels different. The chatter is quieter. The energy is off. Mariah Benson notices it first, the empty chair beside David. Carla's missing. David sits alone, tapping his pen rhythmically on the table. His attorney leans over and whispers something, but David only smirks. "She won't be a problem," he mutters, just loud enough for Mariah's lawyer to hear. Judge Warren enters. Her robe hides the tension in her shoulders, but her eyes betray her, darting to the gallery, scanning for the woman who's vanished. "Call to order," she says, voice sharp. The sound of the gavel echoes like a gunshot. Mariah's lawyer rises. "Your Honor, before we proceed, we request a short recess. My client has new evidence." "Denied," David interrupts smoothly, rising to his feet. "We've wasted enough time with baseless distractions." The judge fixes him with a cold stare. "You'll sit down when I tell you to, Mr. Benson." For a brief second, he looks rattled. But then that smile returns, practiced, poisonous. "Of course, Your Honor." Mariah studies him. "What did you do?" she asks quietly, almost to herself. David tilts his head, feigning innocence. "Excuse me?" She doesn't look at him. "You walked in here like you've already won." "That only happens when someone's been silenced," the courtroom murmurs. David's lawyer objects, but Judge Warren raises a hand. "Enough. We'll continue." As testimony resumes, every tick of the clock is a blade. The judge can barely focus. Her thoughts loop around the previous night, the cold basement, the flickering light, the scream. She'd searched the entire sublevel after Carla disappeared. No sign, no affidavit, nothing, only that necklace. And now, as David leans back, in his chair, the judge's gaze flicks to his cufflink, gold, engraved with a crescent emblem. The same emblem stamped on the storage room keycard she found near the missing file box. Her heartbeat quickens. "He's been there, Mr. Benson," she says slowly. "Before we continue, where is Ms. Rivers?" David's smirk falters, just for an instant. Then he chuckles. "Your Honor, my companion chose not to attend today. I believe she's unwell." The judge leans forward. "Did she tell you that herself?" He pauses. "Through counsel." "Name of counsel?" She didn't say. The silence that follows feels like thunder pressing down. Mariah's lawyer stands again. "Your Honor, I renew my request for recess. We have serious concerns regarding the safety of a witness." The judge's voice is steady, but her fingers grip the gavel too tightly. 15-minute recess. Mr. Benson, you will remain available. The courtroom empties quickly. Mariah lingers by the rail. Judge Warren, she says softly. Yes, Mrs. Benson? I don't think Carla's missing by choice. The judge meets her eyes and sees something she didn't expect. Compassion. Why do you say that? Mariah glances at David, now surrounded by reporters. Because I used to cover for him, too. The words hang there, heavy and raw. Don't let him make you afraid to act, Mariah whispers. Then she turns and walks away, leaving the judge frozen in thought. Cut to later that night. The judge's car pulls into the empty courthouse parking lot. The rain has started again, harder this time, like the sky is scrubbing something clean. She steps out, trench coat pulled tight, clutching an envelope under her arm. Inside is the photocopy of one page, the single piece of the affidavit she managed to scan before the light went out in the basement. It's not complete, but one signature is clear. David Benson, CEO of Ridgeview Holdings. She knows what this means. If she submits this into evidence, it'll prove that David's financial empire was built on fraud, and that she herself witnessed it years ago and failed to report it. It's the truth that could end him and her. She unlocks her chambers and finds someone already waiting in the dark. Carla. Her hair is wet, her clothes torn at the shoulder. But she's alive. The judge exhales, half in relief, half in disbelief. Where have you been? Carla's voice trembles. They took me. 2 men. Said they worked for Ridgeview. They wanted the affidavit. I escaped when they stopped at the old substation near the river. Did they follow you here? I don't think so. The judge guides her inside, locks the door. Sit. You need to rest. Carla shakes her head. No time. You need to see this. She reaches into her coat and pulls out a flash drive. The judge frowns. What is that? The security footage from the courthouse basement. I knew something would happen, so I placed a micro camera on the evidence shelf yesterday. She plugs it into the judge's laptop. The screen flickers. Static. Then, an image. A shadowed figure in a suit. David Benson, entering the archive room with a key card. He flips through folders, finds file 211, and tears out the affidavit. Then he pulls out his phone, snaps photos, and sets the file box on fire. The judge stares at the screen, jaw clenched. He destroyed court evidence. Carla nods. And that's your proof. The judge sits back, the weight of years pressing down. She whispers, If I release this, they'll see I was part of that case. I'll lose my bench, my career. Carla leans forward. You'll lose it anyway if you do nothing. Silence. The only sound is rain against the window. Then, slowly, the judge closes the laptop and stands. Tomorrow, I'll call him to the stand myself. Carla looks stunned. You'll confront him? The judge's eyes are calm now, resolute. No more shadows. He built his empire on silence. It's time to make him hear the truth, under oath. The courthouse feels like a pressure cooker the next morning, too bright, too cold, too aware of its own silence. The crowd has doubled since yesterday. Reporters linger near the doors like vultures with microphones. Mariah Benson walks in first, straight-backed and silent, her lawyer close behind. The gavel hasn't even struck yet, and she already feels the shift in the air. Something's coming. Then the doors swing open. David Benson strides in, wearing that same expensive arrogance. Navy suit, silver cufflinks, a smile calibrated to charm cameras. But behind him, to everyone's shock, walks Carla Rivers. Her hair is pulled back, her arm bandaged, her eyes ringed with exhaustion, but she's standing tall. The whisper spreads through the courtroom like wildfire. She's back. Wasn't she missing? Why's she with him again? David doesn't notice the way her fingers twitch, gripping her purse strap like it's a lifeline. Judge Warren watches her approach the witness stand. She doesn't move, doesn't speak, but something in her eyes says, "Thank you for surviving." The bailiff swears her in. Carla's voice barely trembles. "Ms. Rivers," says David's attorney, a slick man named Connors. "You were Mr. Benson's companion for approximately 2 years, correct?" "Yes." "And during that time, did he ever threaten or harm you in any way?" Carla hesitates. Her lip trembles. "Not physically," Connors smirks. "Not physically. Understood. So when you left yesterday, it wasn't because Mr. Benson forced you to. It was by your own choice?" Carla's throat tightens. "No," the courtroom freezes. "No?" Connors repeats. "Could you elaborate?" Her voice cracks. "2 men came to my apartment. They said they worked for Ridgeview Holdings. They said they needed something from me." Connors laughs lightly. "Miss Rivers, are you aware that Ridgeview Holdings has over 7,000 contractors?" "Anyone could claim to work for them," the judge's voice cuts in, colder than steel. "Let her answer." Carla swallows hard. "They had Mr. Benson's company IDs. They wanted a document. When I said I didn't have it, She stops. "They locked me in a van." David leans forward, pretending to be confused. "Your Honor, this is absurd. My company has no reason to—" The judge raises her hand. "You will stay silent until addressed, Mr. Benson." A shiver of authority runs through the room. Carla takes a shaky breath. "They burned something, files. I escaped when they stopped for gas." Connors sighs dramatically. "Your Honor, this witness is clearly unstable." The judge slams the gavel once. "Enough. Ms. Rivers, do you have proof of what you're saying?" Carla's trembling stops. Her hand dives into her purse. "Yes." She pulls out a flash drive, the one she and the judge saw together last night. The courtroom watches as the bailiff carries it to the clerk. "Play the file," Judge Warren orders. The lights dim slightly as the projection screen flickers to life. Grainy black and white footage appears, time-stamped, dated, clearly real. A shadowed figure enters the courthouse basement. The audience murmurs. The angle shifts. He turns toward the camera. It's David. Mariah's hand flies to her mouth. The gasp from the gallery drowns out the judge's first words. David shoots to his feet. "That's not me. Sit down." Judge Warren's voice cracks like thunder. He freezes. On screen, he flips through files, finds one labeled Property Trust, 211, rips out a paper and sets the rest ablaze. The firelight illuminates his face, unmistakable. The video ends abruptly as the camera tilts. Probably from the smoke. The lights come back on. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. David tries to compose himself. "Your Honor, this is clearly fabricated." The judge leans forward. "Mr. Benson, I've already authenticated the metadata. The footage is genuine." His jaw tightens. "You what?" "I authorized it myself last night." Carla turns to him, tears streaming down her face. "You destroyed the affidavit that could have cleared Mariah's name 5 years ago." "Cleared her name?" The lawyer blurts. "What are you talking about?" Mariah's lawyer stands. "Your Honor, may I address the relevance?" The judge nods. This footage ties directly to the original property fraud case that began before Mrs. Benson filed for divorce. Mr. Benson laundered assets through shell trusts, all under his wife's name. When the audit began, he framed her as the signatory to avoid exposure. The gallery gasps again. David's face drains of color. "That's ridiculous." The judge's voice softens, but it's deadlier for it. "Then explain why your signature appears twice, once on the destroyed affidavit and once in the trust record your wife supposedly signed." Mariah stares at him. You used me?" David laughs nervously. "You benefited from it too, sweetheart." The room goes still. Carla breaks down completely, sobbing into her hands. "He promised he'd protect me. Said I'd never have to work again if I helped him shred the evidence." Her voice cracks on the last word. The judge signals for a recess, but the courtroom ignores her. David lunges toward Carla, shouting, "You liar! You're nothing without me!" 2 bailiffs intercept him instantly. The crowd erupts in chaos, reporters snapping photos, people shouting, chairs scraping, and over it all, Judge Warren stands motionless, watching the empire of arrogance crumble before her. Then she lifts the gavel. The sound echoes, 1, 2, 3 strikes, and the courtroom falls quiet again. "Mr. Benson," she says, her voice even, "you've just committed contempt of court. But that will be the least of your problems when federal investigators receive that footage." He glares at her, seething. "You think this is over?" She leans forward, her tone quiet but lethal. "It's been over since the moment she recognized me." Everyone in the courtroom turns toward her, confused, whispering. "Recognized her?" David blinks, realization dawning too slowly. "What did you just say?" The judge's eyes flick briefly toward Carla, then to Mariah. "Court will reconvene tomorrow morning," she says, voice trembling just slightly now. There's one final truth left to be heard. The gavel drops. As the spectators file out, the camera lingers on the judge's face, pale, haunted, but resolute. Behind her, the words, "In God we trust," hang above the bench like judgment itself. She whispers to herself, unheard, "Forgive me, Father. I waited too long." Morning light filters through the courthouse windows like it's afraid to touch anything. The press is waiting outside again, cameras ready, rumors flying. Everyone's whispering about the judge's strange final words yesterday. There's one final truth left to be heard. Inside, the air hums with unease. Mariah Benson sits still as a statue, her fingers curled around the same pen she's been using to keep herself grounded for weeks. Carla Rivers, pale but steady, avoids every camera lens. David Benson enters last, flanked by 2 attorneys now, his jaw clenched, his charm gone. The courtroom hushes when Judge Warren enters. Her robe looks heavier today, her steps slower, but her eyes cold, exact, deliberate. "Before we resume testimony," she begins, "I am compelled to disclose information relevant to these proceedings. It concerns prior contact between this court and a witness." Every reporter in the gallery leans forward. David's lawyer rises immediately. "Your Honor, if there's any conflict of interest—" "There is," she cuts in. "And it's mine." The sound ripples through the courtroom like thunder. Even Mariah looks stunned. Judge Warren continues, voice steady but edged with pain. "Years ago, before I was appointed to the bench, I was assigned as legal aid in a civil property fraud investigation involving Ridgeview Holdings, under Mr. Benson's ownership. A young woman by the name of Carla Rivers was listed as a temporary contractor at that time." Carla's breath catches. "You remember me?" The judge nods slowly. "You came to the hearing once wearing a red coat. You tried to speak before the counsel shut you down." Tears fill Carla's eyes. "You were the one who told me to leave before he came in." The judge exhales, a quiet, painful admission. "Yes, I saw him intimidate witnesses that day. I saw you terrified. I tried to file a report, but my senior supervisor buried it, saying we had no jurisdiction to act on internal corporate matters." She looks at David now. His eyes are blazing. "So you were that intern?" I was," she interrupts. "And I should have done more." Mariah watches the exchange in stunned silence. It hits her then. Why the judge looked shaken when Carla walked in that first day. Why she'd been distant yet protective. Judge Warren turns to the jury box, though there's no jury in this divorce proceeding, just the court recorders, stenographers, and witnesses. Her words are measured, but her voice trembles with years of buried guilt. "I carry the failure of that silence every day. Had I spoken up, Mrs. Benson, you might never have been trapped in his deceit. Ms. Rivers might never have been used. And Mr. Benson," she pauses, gaze narrowing, "might not be sitting here pretending to be the victim of exposure when he's merely the author of his own undoing." David slams his palm on the table. "You can't talk to me like that. You're compromised, and I'll see you disbarred for this performance." The judge doesn't flinch. "You already filed the motion last night, didn't you?" His mouth opens, then closes. "How?" "There are things I know, Mr. Benson. You forget, I was in your office that day. I remember the woman who begged you to stop the fake loan filings. The one who disappeared 3 weeks later." The room goes silent. Carla's lips part. "You mean Tamara?" "Yes. She was my sister." The air leaves the room. The gallery collectively exhales in disbelief. Mariah whispers, "My God!" David's face contorts. Anger, then panic, then something close to fear. This is insane. You people are conspiring to destroy me. But the judge is already pulling something from her bench. The sealed envelope she'd been guarding for days. This was submitted anonymously to my chambers 2 nights ago. It contains the full affidavit from the Ridgeview Trust investigation. The original, recovered from your home office by federal agents this morning. The courtroom erupts. Mariah's lawyer shoots to his feet. Your Honor, how? The warrant was filed last night after the video was authenticated, the judge explains. What you saw yesterday was only the beginning. The rest proves a long chain of money laundering and witness coercion. She turns her gaze to David, steady and cold. Including your affair with Ms. Rivers, which was never about love, was it? David's lips curl. You think I needed her? The judge doesn't respond. She nods to Carla instead. You may answer if you wish. Carla's hands shake, but she finds her voice. He used me. He said I'd get a promotion if I helped transfer files. He said it was just corporate paperwork, that nobody would get hurt. Then he started buying me things, clothes, a car. He said I was part of his future. Mariah closes her eyes. Carla's tone hardens. When I found out what he'd done, when I realized my signature was on documents that framed his wife, I tried to back out. That's when he told me he could make people disappear. David laughs, but it's hollow now. You can't prove any of that. The judge presses a button on her console. A voice recording plays, tinny, distorted, but clear enough. You'll stay quiet if you know what's good for you. Carla, I've already dealt with worse. The voice is unmistakably David's. Reporters surge to their feet. Flashbulbs erupt. The judge lets the recording end before speaking. I believe that's proof enough. David is on his feet again, shouting, red-faced. You set me up. You're not a judge. You're a witch with a grudge. Bailiffs move in, restraining him. His attorney drops his pen, knowing it's over. Mariah just watches. No triumph, no malice, only weary relief. Carla whispers, It's done. But the judge isn't finished. No, she says softly. Not yet. She rises from her seat, takes off her robe, and sets it gently on the bench. For the record, I will be recusing myself after issuing today's orders. My duty here is concluded. Mariah stands. Judge Warren. Thank you. The judge looks at her with quiet humility. Don't thank me. Justice delayed isn't justice delivered, but sometimes it still finds its way home. As she walks out of the courtroom, the camera follows her silhouette, the robe left behind, the light pouring in through the high windows. In the background, the bailiffs escort David Benson away in cuffs. Carla sinks into her seat, tears of disbelief running down her cheeks. Mariah watches it all, whispering under her breath. It took everything from us, but maybe it gave us back the truth. And somewhere, in the empty corridor beyond the courtroom doors, Judge Warren stops, leans against the marble wall, and finally exhales. Tamara, she murmurs, eyes closing. It's done. The courthouse emptied slowly, like a theater after the final act of a tragedy. Cameras kept flashing outside, but inside, the echo of the truth lingered. Heavy, unhurried, undeniable. Mariah stayed seated long after everyone left. The gavel's last strike still rang in her mind, not as an end, but as a release. Across the aisle, Carla sat alone, hands clasped so tight her knuckles whitened. For the first time, neither woman saw the other as rival or enemy, just 2 survivors caught in the orbit of the same man's deceit. Mariah finally stood and walked over. Carla flinched, instinctively bracing for blame, but Mariah only extended her hand. You didn't ruin my marriage, Mariah said softly. He did that all by himself. Carla's eyes filled with tears. I thought I was in love. I thought. He saw me, Mariah nodded. He saw what he could use. That's all men like him ever see. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was cleansing. 2 women, both betrayed, both standing where he'd wanted them broken. Reporters' voices echoed faintly from outside. Business mogul David Benson in custody. Federal charges expected by morning. Exclusive. Mistress's connection to missing whistleblower revealed. But inside, the air was calm. Then came the soft click of heels. Judge Warren, no robe now, just a dark gray coat, entered quietly. Her expression carried the exhaustion of years. "Ladies," she said, voice lower now, "before you leave, there's something you should both see." She placed a thin folder on the table. It wasn't marked evidence or exhibit, just a name written in elegant cursive, Tamara Rivers. Carla's breath hitched. "My sister," the judge nodded. "The Bureau reopened her case last week. They found the documents she'd hidden, the ones that tie Benson's offshore accounts to the Ridgeview shell companies." Mariah's eyes widened. "So she tried to stop him?" "Yes," the judge said. "And because of that, he made sure she disappeared before she could testify." Carla pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. "All this time, I thought she ran away." "No," the judge said gently. "She ran toward the truth. And now it's finally found her." Mariah reached across the table and squeezed Carla's hand. "She's the reason we're free," Carla nodded through tears. "She saved us without even knowing." The judge closed the folder and looked out the window. The press vans, the chaos, the vultures. "They'll call it a scandal," she said. "But what it really is an ending." Mariah tilted her head. "And for you, Judge? What happens now?" A tired smile touched her lips. "Judges don't get endings, just lessons. And mine is that silence costs more than any verdict ever could." She started to walk away, but paused, turning back to Mariah. "There's a foundation being formed in Tamara's name," she said, "for women who were silenced by men like him. I'd like you both to be part of it." Carla blinked. "You'd want me there?" Judge Warren gave a faint smile. "You already started it, Ms. Rivers. You just didn't know it yet." Mariah nodded. "Count us in." Outside, thunder rolled low and distant, the kind that shakes the ground but promises rain. As they stepped out together, the cameras exploded in light. Questions flew like bullets. "Mariah, how do you feel?" "Carla, did you know the judge?" "Do you regret the affair? Will you forgive him?" But the women said nothing. They just kept walking, side by side, heads high, through the storm of flash and noise. When they reached the courthouse steps, Mariah turned slightly toward the crowd and said the only thing that mattered: "This isn't about revenge. It's about truth. And truth doesn't whisper. It waits." The reporters fell silent. The rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady, washing the marble steps clean. Far behind them, in a holding cell deep inside the courthouse, David Benson sat alone. The charm, the smirk, the arrogance, all gone. He stared at the blank wall, replaying Carla's words, the judge's voice, the sound of his own threat echoing in court. Then, a faint knock on the metal bars. A federal agent stepped forward. "Mr. Benson," the agent said, sliding a file through the slot, "your arraignment's been moved up. You're being transferred to federal custody tonight." David didn't answer. His eyes fell on the stamped label on the folder. Case 02419T, United States versus David Benson. Lead witness, Carla Rivers. He closed his eyes, exhaling sharply, for the first time realizing he wasn't the author anymore. He was the headline. Outside, the city lights blurred through the rain, and the courthouse clock struck midnight, the sound of justice keeping time, and somewhere, in a quiet corner of the courthouse, a single portrait hung on the wall, a dedication newly placed beneath it. In memory of Tamara Rivers, the voice they tried to silence. Truth delayed is never truth denied. If this story reminded you that truth doesn't need revenge, it just needs timing, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Have you ever seen someone's arrogance collapse under the weight of their own secrets? Tell us your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire our next viral tale of karma and courage. And here's a little challenge for the sharp-eyed viewers. There's a tiny moment around minute 18, when the judge lowers her gavel and glances at Carla's purse. That quietly reveals she already knows who the mistress really is. Watch again and tell us what detail you spotted. Did you notice the flicker of recognition in her eyes? Or what she whispers under her breath right after? Because in this courtroom, justice wasn't blind. It was waiting.